I want to make sure that you understand the connection between everything that you do when you're building your business and why we do what we do here, the way we do what we do here, and how you, by implementing, are indeed building your defense and offense simultaneously in the game of money.
I have a question. The difference between paper gold and actual gold, what is the difference?
When you mean what I think I know. I don't want to make any inferences. What do you mean when you say paper gold? What do you think you mean when you say
when you trade the gold on the stock market?
And when you say trade the gold on the stock market, are you talking about the commodity, as in a commodity as in like a good deliverable, or are you talking about like an ETF, an exchange, GLD, the exchange traded fund?
I don't know the difference.
Got it. So what have you seen as a stock market quote that you believe is gold?
The ETF.
Is it GLD?
Yes.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. So, and thank you for asking this question, because it's really important to hear. Remember, on the stock market, what you are purchasing or investing in and trading or whatnot, specifically in this case with the exchange traded funds, is that you're exchanging an interest into, for all intents and purposes, let's call it a company that has and says, keyword says, they hold X number of ounces, bars, etc. of gold. What you own, or your IRA or whatever owns, is the interest in the company that holds the asset, not the asset. You hear that distinction?
Yep.
So for all intents and purposes, because the company's assets are held as gold, you really have a derivative of gold, but not gold itself. But you have exposure to what happens to gold, but it is not a direct one-to-one with the spot, what is known as the spot price of gold. So let me say it this way. Gold could be going up, but if the CEO of the ETF suddenly is guilty of something, your shares could be going down.
Got you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So there is an advantage from a liquidity standpoint, because the stock market is way more liquid than having to take physical gold down or coin shop or wherever you want to do that. So it's not to say it doesn't serve a purpose or a function, but if your intent was to have possession or be able to have possession, then that is not the way to get it done.
Do we need to have possession? I mean, because doesn't that create another scenario where you need to store it? And
oh yeah, it's not without complication. And I guess the best way of saying it is it depends. Why do you want the exposure to it is the question. That's really the question. What is it that you actually are trying to either protect or gain? And is that the best tool to achieve that objective? I would submit that for most people, the answer is no. Exposure to an ETF is not what you're looking for, but maybe it is, right? Meaning, for me, when I think about gold and its purpose is to function as a substitute for things like currency in a crisis. Let me say it differently. If I needed to go to the grocery store, I know that by having exposure and having and controlling physical gold and silver, I will have an easier way to convert that gold and or silver into dinner that night. If I had the ETF, I don't know that I have the ability to do so now, because now it is dependent on things like the time it takes for a transaction to close inside the stock market, which right now is still T+3, meaning I could say, hey, sell it today, but I'm not receiving the soonest I'm actually receiving money without a margin account. That is, the soonest I'm receiving money is 3 days from now. What if the stock market says we're closed? That could be a problem. But at the same time, if I'm trying to get exposure to gold for the specific point of knowing I'm trying to just protect purchasing power and I'm not concerned about the company or the ETF and all this, if I'm not concerned about those other counterparties, because that's what it is, if I'm not concerned about the other counterparties involved in the transaction, and I'm just parking some money to then maybe increase in value, etc. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm just trying to think as measured in dollars, it will increase so that when I do need it, it'll be there, years from now or whatever. Then that may serve the purpose. It's hard to answer. Do you need it? Because the need is relative to the reason you're doing it in the first place. So in my case,
yes, that's what
I'm only physical.
So can you show us at some point? Because I've seen videos with Robert Kiyosaki where he has the actual coins or bars that he owns, like he has them there in the video, and he's showing us, right?
I can show you some silver. Give me 1 second. Let me go get it.
So what I was going to say is I mean, for my part, and I'm sure this probably applies to others, we need to know where to go get that.
Yeah. We're definitely, if I had some money for every time I have been asked that question these last 7 days by one of you guys, man, all y'all been asking that one question. So I guess we got to tackle that today. But yeah, so I will almost always have somewhere nearby a way to get to, simple precious metals, because you just don't know what you just don't know, right? And it serves as a quick means to be able to get to the whatever that next step may be. So I know that with what I'm holding in my hands, this is enough to get me transportation to where I need to go so that I can then be safe if need be. And that now it's not going to do much more than that because again, like you were talking about, you got to store it, you got this, you got all that, you got all those extra concerns. Absolutely. So you do have to come up with a plan and strategy of how am I going to protect and store and keep safe certain things like, yes, your silver, your gold. And because again, here's another reason, and this is the fundamental reason. This is what Mike Maloney's entire thesis is. If you trust your government, so whether for those of you from Australia, Denmark,
that's where I'm going next.
All places, if you trust your government to handle the currency properly, then you don't need to do anything. But if you don't, then the recommendation is to save. Like if you were going to save something, it is better for you to save, honestly, almost anything that's not perishable, over the actual currency in and of itself. And because I'm gonna guess when I bought this, silver was, I'm gonna say $15 is my guess, but I don't remember. $15 US at the time per ounce. But and at that time, for all intents and purposes, I could get an Uber ride that would take me a good, 10, 20, 30 miles. I don't know what silver is per ounce right now today, but I do know it's the more.
$26.
How much? How much is it?
26.
Which will still get me an Uber ride to where I need to go if that's what it comes to. If that makes sense. So I can still get the same amount of goods and services is my point with what I exchanged for here. And that's really what it comes down to. I've protected the purchasing power of the currency, or specifically the energy that I used to receive that currency, I've protected that with these, because that energy can then later be quote unquote released by exchanging this for a good or service, if that makes sense.